All right, a pretty basic and easy to understand video for chapter 41. It is the perfect active infinitive. And this is detailed on page 144 in your book. And just think about that title for a second, what that means, a perfect active infinitive. It's an infinitive, so in English our translation is going to have to, to something. It's perfect, so it has happened. It's in the past. It's completed. It's in that perfect family. And it's active instead of passive, so the action is happening, right? Somebody does it rather than the action being done by somebody else. So when we put all three of those together, perfect and active and an infinitive, that's going to make it hopefully pretty easy for you to figure out how we're going to translate these and put them together. So let's take a verb, discedo, discedere, discessi, discessurus. And again, we're dealing with this perfect active infinitive. So since it's perfect, we want to deal with the perfect family. And then we're going to use the perfect stem. We all remember how to get the perfect stem. We go to the third principal part. So for this verb, discessi, and we drop off the final letter I. That gives us the perfect stem. Then, to make a perfect active infinitive, all we do is add isse, I-S-S-E, to the end of that perfect stem. And that's it. That gives us the perfect active infinitive. So for this verb, our perfect stem is disces. We drop the I off the third principal part, and then we just add isse to give us discessisse. Maybe a little bit of a tongue twister, but that's the perfect active infinitive. How do we translate these? For this particular verb, to have departed, because the discedo means depart. So discessisse means to have departed. And perfect active infinitives are always going to be translated to have something, whatever that verb means. The to, obviously the infinitive, and then the have gives us the perfect and the active part of it. To have departed. So as we think about this, what's happening? Well, it's perfect. So the action of this perfect active infinitive is completed. It's finished. It's done. It's perfected. And this happens before the action of the main verb. It's a past tense. That should make sense. Again, we recognize these by this isse ending, which is pretty distinctive. We haven't seen anything like that prior to this. And oftentimes, not always, but very often, especially in the beginning as we're learning these, we're going to see them with passive verbs like dicatur. So he or she is said to have something. So if you see dicatur, you may want to be on the lookout for one of these perfect active infinitives ending in issa. Let's get a little practice with this. So exercise 41b in your book, they give you the form troxissa, and they want to know how do you translate this. Well, obviously, you need to know principal parts. We've been talking about that for a while. If you don't know that troxy comes from traho, which means drag, it's going to be hard to figure out that troxissa means to have dragged as a perfect active infinitive. But if you know the principal parts, not a problem. How about the next one, fuisse? Well, this is from sum esse fui futurus, the verb to be. Sum means I am. Esse means to be. Fua means I was. So fuisse means to have been, the perfect active infinitive of the verb to be. And this is actually a fairly common form that we will see continually going forward in Latin. So you want to get used to that form. How about exercise 41c, dealing with some sentences here, giving the Latin. So the first one, he is said to have studied diligently. The he is said, like we said a few minutes ago, that's dicatur, just a passive form of digo. So he is said. And now we want to say to have studied, and then we have a positive adverb, diligently. So you may want to pause the video if you need to look up some words. And what do you come up with here, forming the perfect active infinitive from study? If you're back with us, diligently is diligenter, that's easy enough. And then to have studied, that's studuisse, from the verb studio, studere, studui. So studui, the third principal part, we knock off the final I, and we replace it with issa, to get to have studied, the perfect active infinitive. One more, number 2, he is said to have had a dog. He is said, again, that's going to be dicatur. Now we want to have had. So had, aka have, we need to know the verb for have. Well, that's habeo, habere, habui, and habitus. So habui, H-A-B-U-I, knock off the I, that gives us habuissa. And then what is it he is said to have had? Well, that's a dog. So dog is going to be the direct object of that perfect active infinitive to have had. Follow me on all that? Here's what we've got. Dicatur, he is said, to have had, habuissa, a dog. Kanem. So if that made sense, hopefully it did, then you're in good shape. I would recommend maybe trying the rest of exercise 41B and 41C to practice your skills for these perfect active infinitives. But overall, a pretty straightforward lesson in this chapter.